Hey guys, my name is Corrin and welcome to my channel. This is my first ever video, so please bear with me as I try to get through this. Basically, I've always been interested in true crime from a very scarily young age, I think. My mom got me into it, and I just kind of fell into that same habit of watching, Dateline and 48 Hours and Forensic Files, and I always thought it was a little bit weird until channels like Investigation Discovery popped up, and then Oxygen turned into a true crime channel. And I realized that a lot of you are interested in it just as much as I am. And since I'm so passionate about it, why not make a channel about it? Because I also like to film and edit, so I get to combine all of these three things. And I thought that'd be really cool. I just want to state, though, that I do not have any real education in this as far as, schooling. I am no therapist. I didn't study forensics. Well, I did in high school, but that doesn't count. I really don't have any, educational background. So I'm just going to be talking about the cases, the facts, relaying them to you. Since I am passionate about it, sometimes my emotions may get the better of me, and I may throw in an opinion here or there, but I'm really going to try to stay away from that because you guys are here to hear about the case, and then you can make your own assumptions on it based on not only what I'm saying, but your own research. I don't want you to just use this video as the end-all be-all of all the facts because there's no way that I could cover everything. The way I'm going to run my channel is basically giving you some key names. Then I'm going to dive right into the murder or whatever the case may be, give you those facts, and then I'm going to go into the outcome of the case, if it went to trial, if it didn't, what the motives are said to have been, if that comes from the killer or if that just comes from speculation. I will be sure to let you know because, like I said, I don't want to relay any false information. These are real cases, so we do need to be a little bit wary when we're commenting and asking questions or whatnot because people have been affected. People are still being affected by these things. It's not just like, oh, it happened and now it's over. No, they're still going on and things can change in a day, so we just need to be wary. Now, my first case is going to be this Skylar Neese case. Now, this case is the first one I chose because, I have watched a lot of other true crime YouTubers and noticed that viewers like you have commented that you want them to cover this case, so I figured that was a good starting point. But I had also seen this case years back when it first happened. This case happened in 2012. These girls that it involves are my age, and I watched this documentary. I think it was Dateline, and then it was on Dr. Phil, and just the story of it is just so shocking to me, especially, like I said, because these girls are my age. So I'm going to jump right in. Like I said, I will go into the backstory, but not too far back. I don't want to give you details that won't have affected the outcome. So Skylar Neese was born to Mary and Dave Neese in February of 1996 in a small town in West Virginia. She was an only child, but she was described by her whole family as super bubbly and compassionate. A little stubborn, but just an overall good kid. She ended up meeting her best friend, Sheila Eddy, when she was in 2nd grade. Now, these two girls did not go to the same school. They actually met at a community center that was kind of in between where the two of them lived. But nonetheless, they hit it off immediately, and the distance did not hinder them from becoming literally like the ride or die two girls that you just see growing up together. Sheila Eddy was also an only child, and I'm sure that was a big bonding point for her and Skylar. However, unlike Dave and Mary Neese, Sheila's parents ended up divorcing. And in the long run, that's kind of a driving force because when her mom got remarried, they ended up moving closer to Skylar, and for the first time, Sheila and Skylar were able to attend the same school, and they started high school together at University High in West Virginia. During their freshman year, Skylar and Sheila met Rachel Schoaf. Now, Rachel Schoaf also grew up in West Virginia and was also an only child. This friendship kind of took off. They were all considered the Three Musketeers. Their schoolmates described them as never being apart, and everything seemed great. It couldn't be better for three girls that had just started high school. But if you know anything about girls and high school, you know that not everything is always perfect. And in sophomore year, this friendship that they had built started to break apart. Rachel and Sheila got a lot closer. They started to dress alike. They would both wear striped shirts, and then Skylar looked like the odd one out, and that's exactly how she felt. Rachel and Sheila had boyfriends and were having sex and could joke about those things, and Skylar did not have a boyfriend. But it was one night in late summer of 2011 that really, really caused tension between them. I believe they were all sleeping at Sheila's house, and they were, doing what 15-year-old girls do. They were drinking a little bit and kind of just like breaking the rules. They were taking videos and having fun, and all of a sudden, Rachel and Sheila start having sex, and Skylar doesn't really know what to do. She's bared witness to something that she's not comfortable with. Later in the night, they're going to bed, and Sheila tells Skylar to move over so she can lay closer to Rachel, which makes Skylar even more uncomfortable. And Skylar was by no means homophobic, but she felt awkward. She felt out of place. She felt like these two girls were getting involved in something that she was not a part of. Not that she wanted to be, but Sheila was her best friend, and she was just shocked that everything was kind of changing. Now, after this night and after that fight, tensions just continued to grow between the three of them, mostly between Sheila and Skylar. And this can be seen in some of the tweets that were sent out. Skylar ended up tweeting on September 6, 2011, "I tell the whole school all the shit I have on everyone, which is a lot. Hashtag if I could get away with it." After this tweet, things just kind of went along as they normally did, but there was always that sense that something was wrong. In October of 2011, in their biology class, Rachel and Sheila asked their professor how they could dispose of a body. A lot of schoolmates remember this. The teacher claims that he does not remember them asking this, but if they had, it wouldn't have seemed out of the blue because it is a biology class. And there actually was a body that was found behind their school not too long ago. So it didn't, if they did ask it, which is still under speculation, it wouldn't have seemed out of blue to the teacher. Supposedly, this discussion about getting rid of Skylar in their biology class was relayed to Skylar. People told her that, Rachel and Sheila said this stuff, and she kind of just shrugged it off. I mean, she didn't think anything of it. She said it was a game, but supposedly she also approached them about it, and of course they also shrugged it off, and it was just kind of left. Between the period of October, when they asked about the dead body and how to dispose of one, and between the time of Skylar's death, there are reports that Rachel and Sheila were constantly talking about killing her. But in early June of 2012, Skylar did go on a trip with Sheila and her family for a week. I'm not exactly sure where they went, but it was a mess. The girls fought the entire time. And when they get back from that trip in June, Sheila basically tells Rachel, yeah, we're going to kill Skylar. You can see from Skylar's tweets, she says, people can be mean for absolutely no reason. It really doesn't take much to piss me off. Sick of being at fucking home. Thanks, quote unquote, friends. Love hanging out with you all too. And on the day of her death, she tweeted, "You doing shit like that is why I will never completely trust you." So that tweet was from Thursday, July 5th. And like I said, that is when Skylar is murdered. Now, she gets home from her job at Wendy's at 10 p.m. She kisses her parents goodnight, and she's not intending to go out. She has no desire. She's tired. She just, she's obviously in a fight with her two friends, and she's kind of over it. She's beginning to make new friends and just kind of separating herself from the drama. And then she gets a text and phone calls from Rachel and Sheila asking her to go out for a joyride. Now, Skylar originally does not want to go. She tells them no. She said she doesn't feel like it. Obviously, she made that tweet about not trusting people and, saying her friends are hanging out without her, and now all of a sudden they're texting her. But there's an implication that Rachel and Sheila, want to make things right. So eventually Skylar agrees to go out. Now she does sneak out of her house. She puts a little bench underneath her window, which she normally does, and you can see her leaving her apartment complex and getting into a car at around midnight. That is the last time that Skylar is seen alive in that photo. She gets into a car and they drive off, and her parents never see her again. Now the girls drive to a little place in Blacksville, West Virginia. This is kind of the place that they used to go to smoke weed. So Skylar thought that's what they were going to do, and that's what Rachel and Sheila told her they were going to do. So they just chatted for a bit. They were going to light up, and Sheila and Rachel had a broken lighter. Skylar said, "Hey, I have one in the car." So she walks to the car, and Rachel and Sheila look at each other. They go 1, 2, 3, and they run after Skylar and begin to stab her. Now, Skylar is technically stronger than Rachel and Sheila, and she actually did manage to run away for a bit. But Rachel attacked her, knocked her down. Skylar tried to stab Rachel and nicked her ankle, but there was really nothing she can do to overpower them. The girls say that they stabbed her until she stopped making weird noises, which is just really, really cruel. They stood over her, and Skylar was just asking why. Now, they intended to bury Skylar, and when they opened Sheila's trunk, there was a shovel, there was bleach, there was a change of clothes. I mean, some authorities define this as the trunk of a serial killer. That's how prepared these girls were. When they tried to shovel into the ground, it was too frozen. They weren't strong enough to get it, so they just kind of threw some dirt and branches over Skylar's body, left her cell phone there, and drove home. The next morning, Skylar's parents wake up. They find that she's not in her bedroom. Dave goes out and sees the bench. Skylar has sneaked out of the house before, so he's obviously angry with her, but he doesn't really think it's a matter of despair or like something horrible went wrong. They just think she stayed out for the night, didn't make it back, and, you know, they were calling her phone and leaving her voicemails like, "You're in so much trouble." They really didn't think anything was wrong until Wendy's called and asked if Skylar was coming in for her shift. Now, Skylar loved that job, and she took it very seriously, and she would have never missed a shift. So that was the first indication to Skylar's parents that something was really, really wrong. So when Skylar's parents kind of set off the alert that she was missing, they called Sheila, they called Rachel, and Sheila said she didn't know anything. Rachel said she didn't know anything. They hadn't seen her. They hadn't heard from her. But later on, Sheila actually did call Skylar's mom and confess that they went joyriding at 11, and she dropped off Skylar at 12. She walked up the driveway, and they never saw her again. I mean, Skylar's parents really believed Sheila. Sheila would come over her house. She would cry in Skylar's bed, and she would be handing out flyers, and it was just really, really crazy that she could put herself so close to the mother and father of the person that she killed and feel nothing. Rachel was very unlike Sheila in the sense that she really stayed far away from the Neeses. She really didn't get involved. She wasn't talking to them like Sheila was. She wasn't trying to console them or trying to be consoled by them. She just kind of stayed away. But the girls went to school. They were posting photos. They were seemingly having an okay time with the fact that their friend was missing. Now, the investigation kept going, and they realized that Sheila was lying when she said that she had picked Skylar up at 11 and dropped her off at 12, because the security camera footage from the apartment shows Sheila actually picking Skylar up at 12. They also got cell phone records that showed that Skylar was texting the girls when they claimed that they were with her, joyriding. So clearly Skylar wasn't with them at the time that they claimed. All this evidence was building up, and the authorities kind of knew that since the girls were lying and failing polygraphs, they knew something that they weren't sharing. And they really were focusing on Rachel because she seemed to be the one that was more of the follower. On December 28th, Rachel Shove had a complete mental breakdown. She was actually threatening to kill herself, and her mom put her into a psychiatric hospital for 5 days. This is kind of when the police and authorities knew that they had her. They knew that she was going to break. They were so sure, in fact, that Rachel would be the one, if anybody, to confess, that when she was released from the hospital, she was immediately driven to her attorney's office by her mother, and where an interview had been set up with authorities. They did not want her to go home. They did not want Sheila Eddy to get a hold of her, because they were thoroughly convinced that if Sheila Eddy could get a hold of Rachel, that Sheila would be able to convince her not to confess. And that is just a telltale sign of how manipulative and controlling Sheila was. But after about 3 questions, she just admitted that we stabbed her, meaning her and Sheila. They really didn't have to push too hard. But they were also thoroughly shocked that that was what had happened. They really thought that maybe something happened to Skylar, maybe she had overdosed, maybe they did something unintentionally and then panicked. But they didn't actually think that they intentionally killed their best friend. A part of Rachel's plea deal was that she would take the authorities to where her and Sheila had buried Skylar. But when she first took them there, the ground was too frozen. They actually had to wait 2 weeks just to be able to dig into it. But when they did, in mid-January, they did find human remains. On March 13, 2013, it was made known to the public that the remains found were, in fact, those of Skylar Neese. And on the same day, Sheila went to Twitter. She posted a collage of photos of her and Skylar and said, "R.I.P. Skylar, you will always be my best friend." I mean, it's just really crazy to me that she could honestly think she could still get away with this, that she could still convince people that she was sad and that she loved her best friend and she had nothing to do with it, after the whole public knew that Rachel had confessed. As a part of her plea deal, Rachel Shoaf officially pleaded guilty to the murder of Skylar Neese on May 1st of 2013. She couldn't be convicted of first-degree murder, even though this was clearly planned, because she had confessed, and part of her plea deal was she could only be convicted of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but she is eligible for parole in 10 years, so she could technically get out in 2023. Sheila Eddy pleaded not guilty on September 17, 2013. She really thought that she could get away with it. She was ready to go to trial, but her attorneys convinced her otherwise when they saw the mounting evidence against her. And if she did go to trial, Rachel would have testified against her, and she would have never been able to really get out of it. She ended up pleading guilty not too long after and was sentenced to 15 years to life. Now that we've discussed the case and everything that had happened and the outcome, I kind of want to talk about the motive. And in this case, there's really not a set-in-stone motive. In fact, when Rachel was asked why they did this to Skylar in her confession, she simply stated, "We just didn't like her anymore." And it's crazy to me that that would be your response when someone asks you why you stabbed your best friend to death. But that was exactly what she said. There are theories that Rachel and Sheila were scared that Skylar was going to tell the whole school about them having sex and them being in this affair. Rachel's parents were very religious, so this would have been a definite blow to Rachel. But there are also theories that Sheila probably didn't even care if people found out. She just used the whole lesbian sex thing to force Rachel to do it with her, and that she would have done this anyway. However, there really is no defined answer as to why they did this. And maybe that is why this case is so intriguing, on top of the fact that these were 3 girls, 3 16-year-old girls, and 2 of them killed their best friend. I mean, that in itself is crazy, but the fact that there is really no defined motive also makes us want to know more about it. So that's where I'm going to leave this case. I do want to say that I got a lot of my sources from this book. It's called Pretty Little Killers: The Truth Behind the Savage Murder of Skylar Neese. If you want to know anything more about this case, it goes into so much more detail than I could ever describe. It has photos and documents, and it's just a really well-written account of this case. I'm also going to put links below to some of my other sources, just in case you do want to do your own research.